God did for me, ooh, like, I can't even explain. Like, it's like this fire that can't put out, and it keeps on growing and growing. It can't be put out, right? Like nothing can put it out. Only God, He's going to expand it even more. Like,
Amen.
Like at gang convention, like my legs were shaking. Like there is a bunch of more people like right here. Like, I don't know why I'm nervous. Like, cause there's but God, like, I came back with something.
Come on now.
I came back with something that impacted my family. I came back dancing. My parents were like, "Are you alright?" or something. I was like, "Yeah, I am." It's because I'm really excited.
Hi, my name is Precious. I just want to thank God for my salvation, Pastor Benny and Sister Ellen, and my mom, because how many know we put our parents through so much. I didn't want to go to high school summer pack or a game convention. I just wanted to stay home and like sleep and summer. But my mom was like, "No, you're going. You don't have a choice." And I'm so thankful that she made me go because I really needed it. I needed a separation. This past year, I was just like, I just kind of started questioning God and like, why like this, stuff happened with my brother and like just a lot of things were going on. And it was prayer that got me, and I stopped believing in prayer. I thought it didn't work no more, and let me tell you, prayer works, right? So high school pack, we did this like crossover thing. And that really got me, like, it just made me open my eyes, like really, like, it's crazy because, like, you know so many people, and we have the answers to tell them about God. And something can happen, it's like, dang, I had the chance to tell them, and I, like, didn't. And what got me was, it's really our time. Like, our generation is dying. Like, we see so many people depressed, alcoholics, addicted to stuff, and, like, I've never just been like, "Oh, Jesus loves you," or, like, go to my church. I'm just like, whatever, party, But, like, now I'm just like, no, like, really, like, Jesus is coming. Like, we always hear it, like, it's our time, blah, 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 but, like, really, like, you guys are old, like, the third wave is here. Like, it's our time to step up and take this generation for God. And I'm so thankful. God bless.
Hello, my name is Anthony. I'm 16 years old, and I went to gang convention with an open heart. And it was fun. It was like the best experience of my life. Like the first one, it was cool, but this one was like, it was lit. And then something that spoke to me was Brother Gabriel. He was like naming like people that died and how they died, and I feel like God was bringing conviction to my heart because, man, I want to stand up for my generation. Our generation is dying, and someone has to stand up, and I want to be the one to take my high school. I want to be the one to be my city. I want to be the one to serve God's love, and I just want to not be comfortable, not live a comfortable life, but live a life of being uncomfortable. Amen.
And I came back from ONG and gang convention, and at ONG I was crying at the altars from Pastor Ray. He had me, little one Jen, and Liz all crying on our knees, and he just really touched me there. He took away my old life from the devil, and he gave me my new one. And everything that I did that I wasn't supposed to, that he just touched me there. And at gang convention, he was just telling me that you're not going back anymore, that you're going to keep forward, and that you're going to go through my life, that you're going to go through everything that you're supposed to go through. And I just allowing me to get a hold of God and for God getting a hold of them. My name is Genesis and I'm 11 years old, and I was able to spend time at ONG and Gang Convention these past 2 weeks, and it was my first ONG, so I was like very excited. And of course I was expecting something, but not that like powerful. On Thursday night, Pastor Ray was preaching and he was telling us a story on how when he was a teacher, there was a kid that went to, I believe it was a Friday night service, and he was just broken at the altars, and at that time he was saved, and the next day he got into a car crash and he was dying, and the paramedic said that he was laying there looking up at the sky saying, "Take me home." And at that time Pastor Ray he said, "If Jesus were to come back tomorrow, where would you go?" And at that time, the altars opened up, and there was kids praying for each other. There was kids broken at their knees. There was kids broken and just praying. And at that time, I thought of this song, "I Just Want to Be in Your Presence." That song just it flew into my mind, and that's how I felt. I just wanted to stay there. I felt free. I felt open, and I just knew at that time I was with Him. I was safe. I just felt that calling upon my life, and on the last day of Gang Convention, Pastor Ray called me up on the stage, and he said, "What is your calling upon your life that God has put on you?" And I said, "I'm called to be a missionary and reach the hurting people."
All right, my name is Anshanique. I'm 22 years old, and my God, your kids. Amen. Amen for your kids. Bless your hearts, parents. Okay, so this is like my millionth Gang Convention. I wasn't able to go to last year's, but I made it a point to go to this year's, and the messages spoke to me, but what spoke to me the most was I went to the New Gen sessions and also one of the New Gen services, and the service, I'll go by the service. The service, Pastor Ray was speaking, and he was talking about he was pointing out people's callings and bringing his altar call. He pointed people out, she was one of the ones, Genesis, and there were some other people, and he's there and he's at the altar, and he's like, what has God called you? What has he told you here while you're here? And you see all these kids, there's I don't know, maybe 200 or 300, no, maybe 200 or 150, and they're all saying, "I've been called to be a pastor, I've been called to be a missionary and evangelist." And it was just crazy to see how broken these kids were, to see it that they wanted to change, and to see that they saw their calling, and they saw that they were going to be somewhere. They knew that God had their hand on them, God's hand was on them. And then after we had the session, and the session was about one of our own, Aaliyah from the East Las Vegas church, she was able to go ahead and share, and they were talking about their lives in New Gen, all the way coming up to adults. There was 3, and they were all kind of just talking about their struggles in New Gen, after New Gen, and then where they're at now. And at the end of the service, it was altar call. They finished. It was it was gonna be done. I was already by the door, making sure nobody made a run for it and stuff. So I was back there waiting. I had my purse on. I was just kind of right there, and he goes, "Hold on, I want to do something." And he's like, "Can I get all the New Gen leaders to come up, the New Gen team to come up?" And so we went up. There was maybe 10, 15 of us. We all went up, and I still had my purse on and everything. I wasn't expecting it. So we went up, and he's talking, and he's like, "I just want to let you guys know that some of you guys, some of the New Gen from before, some don't make it. Some don't make it." And he's "But there are those few that do make it." And he's "And these, if you look up here, these are the few that did make it." And he said, "We've been praying for you, and we've been praying for your callings and your anointings." And he's "What I want to do right now is have all of the New Gen go to the back of the service." So it's in this shape. They're all around the little auditorium, because we went to a different room, and they're all around it, and they go clockwise, and we're all in a line. And he's "I'm just gonna have you guys go around, and it was a line of us, like in front, kind of like how we do our miracle services. And he's like, I want you leaders to lay hands on them, anoint them, pray for their callings, pray for even them going back home, protection and things like that. And so as they come around, like we're all laying our hands on them, like anointing them and praying for their callings and praying for protection. And then it was crazy because you see these young people and they're junior hires, like they're middle schoolers, like a bunch of middle schoolers, and you see those select few that are coming through and they're broken and they're crying, they're hurting, like guys and girls, like it didn't even matter, like everybody was walking through it, and you saw those broken ones, the ones that wanted it so bad and didn't want to go back the same. And I think that, like, it honestly spoke to me the most, because you see that age doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how young they are. Like, they still have a calling upon their lives, and God is still speaking to them too. And I think that was what spoke to me the most that night.
Praise the Lord. I just want to thank God for my salvation. My name is Brother Stephen. I want to thank Taya and Brother Reggie just for giving me the opportunity to just be able to lead the youth here at this gang convention. This one was different. I was there, and I was able to hear our pastor's heart, had time to spend time with him, but I'm going to piggyback off what Antronique said. I'm missing a little hair back here. I made an appointment to the dermatologist. I got a patch. It's stressful. I've never heard a hotel door room close 1,000 times. Never. Clothes all over the room, shorts on the TV, orange peels everywhere, toilet paper on the floor, wet towels in the bathroom. But it was good. I was thankful for the opportunity and thankful for the privilege. But in this transition that I'm in, by God allowing me to open up a discipleship home, God allowing me to lead a life group, being under 3 pastors, Pastor Benny, Pastor Christian, Pastor Reggie, and everything that's taking place within inside of my life, this was a perfect time to separate, a perfect time just to hear God and just to be in His presence and just to get direction. And I went to the altar and just broken and just asking God to give me direction and just refresh me. And I'm here to let you know here this morning that it's not just for the youth. These type of conventions are important. For separation, for getting guidance within the vision.
Yeah.
Amen. But the message that spoke to me was Pastor Izzy. He spoke on the fear of discomfort. Every time God gives us an opportunity, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to have peace. Okay, it's time for you to go to UTC. Well, I haven't got peace yet from God, so I'm not going. Or, hey, brother, you need to go to the men's home. I prayed about it, but I haven't got that peace yet. Or it's time for you to open up a discipleship home. Well, I'm not at peace with it yet. When the opportunity comes from God, it's not going to be peaceful at times. It's going to be very uncomfortable, and fear sets in. But it's when you take that step of faith where God steps in. Amen.
Amen. My name is Taya, and I want to thank God for my salvation and what the privilege, amen, the privilege to be able to go and the privilege to lead your guys' wonderful youth. Amen. And I'm not going to lie, I texted Irene and I was like, is it too late to throw the ball back to you? Because, no, I'm just kidding. I love them. But it was good. It was a really, really good convention. All the messages, even how Steve was talking about Pastor Izzy's message, and one thing that stuck out to me about his message is he was saying that sometimes we're surrendered to the work of the Lord, but we're not always surrendered to the Lord of the work. And I was just like, man, that's so true. Like sometimes we can just get caught up in coming and we're ushering or we're leading worship or we're on the drums or we're playing the keys or we're in sound and media, but we just do these things out of routine and we're surrendered to the work of the Lord, but we're not even surrendered to the Lord of the work. And another thing that hit me was Pastor Doug, and he spoke on the last day, and he was talking about how his title was My Generation. What was it?
My mission.
My Generation, My Mission. And he was saying how from the ages of 14 to 24, the second leading cause of death is suicide. And I was like, man, that's my generation. Like, I take it personal. Like, and they were even saying the whole conference, like, you got to take these things personal. Like, you have to take this generation personal. And I was just like, man, like, suicide, like, 14, like, what are you committing suicide for? Like, your life hasn't even begun yet. And that's where I believe it's our job to remind these kids, like, hey, like, there's so much more after this. There's so much more after your middle school bullies, or after your high school bullies, or there's so much more after your parents being addicted to drugs, and there's so much more. And sometimes these kids don't even get to hear that, and I take it personal. And that's why I'm so broken, because it's a personal thing. And it doesn't always happen in the world, but sometimes it's your very own kids in the church. And that was just like, man, God, like, I need a burden. Like, I think I have a burden right now, and I think that's why I'm broken, but I need a bigger burden for these kids. A bigger burden. And I challenge you guys to pray for these kids. If you don't go to your kids' sports events, go to them, and you'll see the broken kids, and God will point them out to you. And you'll see the ones that are hurting. And even you guys that are still in school, you need to ask God for discernment. You may think that your life is all great, and you may think you have it all together, but that next day when that person in your class is missing, and it's because they committed suicide, that's on your hands. And same thing with us that go to work. That next day when our co-worker isn't there and they're going through things, that's on our hands, and we have to be a people who take it personal. And that was just like something that like really hit me. And even Pastor Doug was saying every 40 seconds someone is committing suicide. Every 40 seconds. That means right now it's 36 seconds. Like as soon as it hits 40, like right now, like someone just killed themselves. Like that's crazy. And I know a lot of us have contemplated suicide and may have even tried. I know my mom was on her way to commit suicide when someone from the men's home came up to her and told her about Jesus. She was literally on her way to commit suicide. On her way, and she stopped at a payphone because she was in the wrong direction and she didn't know where she was at. And she stopped at a payphone to find the guy who was going to give her these 400 ecstasy pills so she can take her life. And as she was at that payphone, two guys from the men's home, and I don't want you guys to get any ideas because I know you're not allowed to witness to women, but I thank God for discernment, amen. Two guys from the men's home came up to my mom and they told her that Jesus loves you and there's a better life. They didn't know that she was on her way to kill herself. They didn't know that. But because of the discernment of God, they were able to reach my mom. And I'm grateful. I take it personal that people are dying. Amen. They're dying out there. And I'm grateful that I was able to go. And I'm grateful for all of your guys' kids. They all got chopped up. So if they tell you guys that I chopped them up, it's true. And you can talk to me afterwards. Amen. But amen. God bless you guys.
I love the gang, and I love your kids. And I had the privilege to be with them for 2 weeks. My God. And I was with them at ONG, and that's the middle school kids, the ages between 11 and 14. And like some of them were saying, that there was a chapel where Pastor Ray spoke, and he began to share his testimony about how he wasn't wanted, and his mom was given $2,000 to go get an abortion. And then she bought a TV. She's like, no, I want to keep the baby. And he was just saying that he grew up as a young man with hurt and with anger within his heart, and that nobody wanted him. And as a young man in middle school, that he was hurting and he was lost. And he began to share his testimony. And these young kids, 11 to 14, when they made the altar call, everybody was broken, and they're crying and they're weeping, and there's healing taking place. And like Aunt was saying, they said that they were called. They're called to be men's home directors. They felt called to be pastors and pastors' wives and missionaries, and then even at gang convention. Brother Gabe, he was saying that when the transition took place for him to be the gang leader, that his old leader told him, he said, this is your city. That you're the pastor, that between the ages of 11 to 35, they're your responsibility. And I took that. I'm like, man, if there's somebody on the news and they overdose on drugs and they're 22 years old, that's on me. If there's somebody that commits suicide and they're 13 years old, that's on me. But I want to take more responsibility. The one word that stood out to me at the whole convention was responsibility. There's so much responsibility upon our lives and on our shoulders, not only as the gang leaders, but even as parents, that we need to continue to pray and intercede, because there's things that we're fighting against that we can't see. The Bible even says that flesh and blood, but it's against principalities and the spirits of the air. So we need to continue to pray, and I want to encourage you to go online. Watch the messages. They're not just for the gang, they're for you. They're inspiring, they're encouraging, they're challenging. And man, I thank God for our pastors. Let's give Pastor Benny and Sister Evelyn a big hand. Because since I've been in the ministry now for 10 years, they've never missed a winter retreat. They've never missed a gang convention, and they make it a point to go. And they're hearing what we hear, and what it does is it holds us accountable. When we start slacking off and the gang starts slacking off, like, brother, I was there, I heard what they were telling you, I heard what came across the pulpit, you need to get it together. But I thank God for our pastors, man, because they make it a point every single year. And he told me, and he said, thank you for allowing me to come. And he said, if it happened, it happened. If it didn't, it didn't. And right there it hit me, and it's like, man, like, all these years you've been coming, I'm not gonna slack off now. I'm not gonna not let you come now. You said you're taken care of. I'm gonna make sure you're here, Pastor. You're with us, and the gang is, we have your back, and we're gonna build this church, amen? We're gonna build this church, and the gang is on the road.